Hi, this is guitarist Denis Taaffe, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. And this time around, we're going to look at a Mackie, right? 802 VLZ3 8-channel mixer. Okay, now, this is a little tiny little mixer, However, it's an 8-channel mixer, and while Mackie has come out with a VLZ4 and so on, basically the way this came about is in my studio room. I used to use a 1402 Mackie mixer, and in fact I've had several incarnations. I had a 16-channel, a 14-channel, and when I got an audio interface like this Motu, right, and this is the, what do they call this again, the Studio Express, right, I thought, wow, what a deal, how fantastic, now I can just get rid of my mixer, right? And so I went ahead and sold the mixer. Well, let me tell you something. Biggest mistake I ever made. Right? Because all of a sudden I had to figure out, well, now wait a minute, where's the volume control? And you had to do it all by software, and those kinds of things. And it had limited inputs here, so if I wanted to run in, a drum machine or what have you, that made it more complicated too. And also it only had 2 mic inputs. If I wanted to use more microphones, I couldn't do that either. And more importantly, monitoring, right? And that drove me crazy, because I suddenly realized, oh no, you mean now I have to, use the software and, in the computer to control the monitors, even when I just want to listen to something, like a YouTube video or what have you, So, selling that mixer was a really bad idea, and in fact, putting in a mixer and using that to control your monitors, is such a nice simplification, because I just found it really complicated and cumbersome to just use the audio interface. And obviously it opens you up to allowing for a lot more different kinds of input possibilities that your audio interface may not have, especially if you're using a small one like I am, which I think is really four inputs or something like that. So very few inputs, especially if you're going in stereo and that kind of thing. And so in my studio, I use the, and I'll show it to you here in a second, a Mackie 1402 VLZ3. Okay, and these have the XDR2 mic preamps. And they're good preamps. They're very quiet and no problem. And it's been great, I'll show it to you. So there it is. That's the 1402, right? And so it's got faders and all kinds of stuff. Okay? And recently I had gotten into a big argument with my mother. I was very upset because she told me that Santa Claus isn't real. What? I said, no, that's not true. He is real, because I see him at the mall every year. Okay. So anyway, to console myself, I was perusing Facebook Marketplace. and going through, just browsing, seeing what kind of gear was available and things. And I had no intent of buying anything. However, I couldn't resist when I saw a little tiny Mackie 802 VLZ3. And I thought, hey, that's kind of like what I use, right? And they're so darn useful. When I use my rack guitar thing, I use a mixer as well for that. And believe me, I tried different brands of mixers, and Mackie just has the edge sonically, sound quality wise. So I was kind of interested, especially when I saw the price. It was just so low, I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, there must be something wrong with it. But I decided to try it, and sure enough, not only did I get it, but it was really in mint condition. And I'll show it to you here. There it is. The little Mackie 802 VLZ3. Okay? 8-channel mixer, and is absolutely full featured just as much as my 1402. It even has the Alt 3-4 channel, so it really has a main mix, a control room output, but also an alt output. And I found that in the studio that comes in super handy. In fact, I used to run 2 signals, one into my effects loop and one into the input of the amp, using a little mixer like this, and use that Alt 3-4. So you could have one, especially if you're running a kind of a drum machine or something, and you've got some PA speakers, you want to run those into the PA amp, but then I also had some that I wanted to run into guitar speakers, but I didn't want the drums and so on. Anyway, just take my word for it, it's very useful. So I couldn't believe it. So I picked that up this morning, and for such a great price, I couldn't believe the price of it. And believe me, it was less than $100, which is a real steal for a really nice sounding unit. Now, what's the big difference then? Well, the big difference is between the larger one and the smaller ones, the number of channels, of course, but also notice, right? These are knobs instead of faders. And I suppose when I was younger, I thought, oh man, I have to have those faders, right? I mean, a mixer doesn't look cool if it doesn't have those faders, right? In reality, it doesn't really make that much difference. I mean, whether you're going like this or the knobs. The faders would have been nice, but it would have made the unit a lot bigger. So, really, really nice unit. It has XLR out, RCA in and out for the tapes right here, and obviously 1/4 inch. And it's got a control room out, a balanced out. And what's very nice is it also came with a manual and a power supply. And this is no ordinary power supply, because if you take a look, you see that connector is actually a mini XLR connector, right? So I found that really interesting. Whereas the Mackie just uses, a 3-prong connector, so the power supply is built in. But here it's so small that they did this XLR power connector, which is fine with me. I'm not going to complain about that. And within this manual, right, you've got all these hookup diagrams, right? And so you've got one for, let's take a look, live band and PA systems, right? And it shows where you can connect guitars, synthesizer, DVD players, MP3 players, effects units, microphones, all going out to PA speakers, okay? So that's one use, I guess, suggested use. Second, the home studio hookup. Wow. Let's see what we have here. So it shows monitors, instruments, guitars, and then microphones, synthesizer, electronic drums, headphone, out to a headphone amp, and then laptop, right here. So that's another suggested use. I guess there's more, surprisingly. Keyboard submixer. Okay, for keyboardists, I guess. You hook up 4 synthesizers, and that goes into a stage snake. So that'd be another use, I guess. Another one, video editing production bay. Right? And this is very much, if you're doing the kind of video recording, which I should do instead of being lazy and just using the camera microphone. But I tell you, when I did these videos, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on the actual video production. So I wanted to do it as quickly as possible. And so you're just using the camera. Microphones is okay. However, obviously this would be a superior way to go. And so here they show video monitor, 2 DVD players, 2 microphones, studio monitors, sound effects, or effects processor, sorry, and desktop computer. And I guess this, this used to come with a software traction, which all the Behringer stuff comes with. But here, if you've got Final Cut Pro, it shows a little computer. All right, so anyway, it can be used for that. And wait, there's more uses. Combined home studio and home theater. Wow. So we've got a DVD player, condenser microphone, a guitar with an amp modeler, a synthesizer and effects processor, a TV out, and monitors, and a laptop and headphones. Right. I guess you could add your own dialogue to the movies. Hey, I'm on the radio. Okay. Anyway, so there's another possibility. Another thing is, a lot of people use these little mixers in podcasts, right? Live streaming, and also out in the field, if you're doing video type stuff or audio. For a video shoot or whatever, you could use that. So anyway, this was a real bargain, and very pleased with my purchase. But, and I guess this would be key, is how does it sound? Especially compared to the Mackie VLZ3. which I have hooked up here, so let's take a listen to it. So that's just a great sound. I mean, it's so quiet. It never really causes me any issues. I mean, it just runs and runs and runs. And if this little Mackie mixer is similar, you know, it should work out great. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hook it up to my monitors, and we're going to run it through just like we would as if I was using my large mixer. And see it, the sound quality is similar and that kind of thing. Yeah, very, very nice. And that's just running into 2 line ends, right? One of the stereo channels. Just super. Yeah. Okay, and this particular mixer is in just mint condition. It's just great. I couldn't even find a scratch on it, really. Okay, having tried both, of course I like faders better, you know, but for the price I'm surely not going to complain. And the knobs are just as usable, very much so. I suppose pushed to its maximum, you know, level-wise and that kind of thing, which would be extremely loud. I mean, you get a little hiss and that kind of thing, which is not unusual. You know, my larger mixer does the same thing. Now remember, these are analog mixers; they're not digital. You know, and I actually prefer the analog mixer, believe it or not. Just sound quality wise, I like the warmth of it. However, a digital mixer may be superior as well, you know. I don't know. Anyway, for my purposes, this is great. And I'm sure I'll find many uses for it. You know, as a little sub-mixer, or to replace my rack mixer, which is in pretty rough shape in comparison. Super. Highly recommended. You know, you can find these little mixers used, and they're so handy in the studio, especially if all you have is an audio interface. You know, you can say, oh, well, I do it all through software. But for me, I found it such a headache, you know, to deal with the, you know, the software, you know, to output the audio and things, and the mixer was so handy, you know, plus it gave me more inputs, you know. That's why I always found limiting. I always wish, man, if I only had one more input on the audio interface, it'd be perfect, you know. That kind of thing, especially if I was using a, you know, a drum machine or what have you, and then the microphones and so on. You know, it doesn't leave you much. So, perfectly handy. So I'm very, very pleased that Santa, you know, came through after all. You know, I mean, it's quite the stocking stuffer for sure. But what a nice piece of gear. It feels solid, you know, there's nothing flimsy about it. And in particular, the sound quality is the same as the larger mixers. And as I said, I tried a different brand. It was pretty inexpensive, very popular, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that the difference in sound quality. It was so inferior, I couldn't believe it. So Mackie, sound quality wise, is just great compared to some other small mixer companies. In fact, so much so that I remember I returned that mixer and I said, man, no way, I'm not replacing, my old Mackie mixer, which sounds better than the new one, and so from that moment on, I've been a Mackie mixer fan, and some people with their audio interface, that's all they have, and it works great, But for me, I found it so limiting, even on the output, Now, Mackie sells the Mackie Big Knob. Now remember, these are powered monitors, so they have no volume control whatsoever, right? And so you could buy a Mackie Big Knob, but it was more expensive than even this little mixer, right? To do the same thing, to control the volume. Or you had to resort to the software, the software mixer from your interface, which I didn't really want to mess with at all. Especially for the way that I was recording sometimes, was that you basically had to set up an entire monitor mix, right, to adjust the volume of the monitors without affecting the actual recording volume, in any case, I'm just saying, for me, a mixer is essential. And I'll never forget the day that I sold my mixer thinking, oh, I have an audio interface, I don't need a mixer anymore. But actually I did. And still to this day it comes in super handy. Especially when I want to run different things into it. So, extremely good purchase. I'm very, very pleased with it, and it was very inexpensive. And the sound quality is just fine, just no problem. Super clean, so great. If you run across one of these, I highly, highly recommend it. You can find so many different uses for it, definitely worthwhile. Alright, that's it. See you next time. Bye.